Is Rival Schools a fighting game that you should have in your video game collection? Ooh wee, this is a game I've been waiting so long to be able to review, and this is actually part of a new series where we will be talking about if a game is worth adding to your collection based on the price and if it's actually a good game or not. Let's jump right into it. This game is the epitome of late 90s, early 2000s. It has that classic fighting game anime feel to it. The introduction to the game is very reminiscent of something like Bloody Roar, and I don't know, maybe some other anime fighters along those lines, but man, this game is so cool. As soon as you get into the opening cutscene, I feel like this just takes me back, and I love the art style of this kind of game. The story, we'll jump into it. It's not the craziest story in the world, but it definitely is a very iconic fighting game. From what I understand, this is the second 3D fighting game that Capcom ever made, and this is also the first game to ever have multiple people on your team. Obviously, the team fighting is not to the same aspect of maybe Marvel vs. Capcom where you can switch fighters in between. You can only use one fighter between like each round. You got to choose which fighter you want to use going into the next round if you win or lose. So you can't be switching in the middle of the fight, which definitely would have been cool if you can. But definitely, you can see that Capcom had an idea with this game, and they were eventually able to turn it into what we all know is Marvel vs. Capcom in that very iconic 3-on-3 fighting game. And it must have stemmed from this semi 2-on-2 fighting game. Rival Schools hit arcades on November 17th, 1997, was getting a PlayStation port for the US on October 26th of 1998. You do have 2 discs on this game. There is a little bit of variation from the arcade machine when you do buy it for your PS1. You have a disc 1, which would technically be like the arcade version of the game, and then you have a disc 2, which kind of doesn't really have so much of the story mode. You have mini games in it, and there's more stuff that you can do once you actually beat the game. But disc 1 is for sure a very faithful idea of what the actual arcade game was. You have 20 playable characters, and it's kind of funny because the 4 unlockable characters are actually hidden off screen, or at least that's how it was looking on my game. Maybe that's an error. This is also the first game to ever have tag ultimate moves, so they're not as crazy as they are in what we've come to know in fighting games, but definitely this was the very beginning and basically paved the way for the fighting games that do that. The coolest thing about these special moves is that they actually coincide with the characters. They'll actually perform it together. It's not just like, oh, you have one cutscene of this character throwing a fire blast and then another cutscene of someone else doing like, I don't know, let's say a Shoryuken. You will actually have the characters performing this ultimate move together in most cases. There are some characters that are a little bit different and they have more like they'll help you regain your energy bar, or they'll actually like heal you, but for the most part these ultimate moves will actually be things that they do together. A cool inclusion into the game roster is Sakura from Street Fighter. From my understanding, she was put into the game to be a little bit of a safety net because Capcom was very concerned about how the sales of this game would go. There's also a lot of fun nods to Street Fighter outside of the Sakura inclusion. One of the teachers named Haido, he literally just has Ryu and Ken's moveset. He can do the Hadouken, he has a Shoryuken. He literally has so many of their movesets, so it's really funny to see that Capcom did try to integrate nods to their most famous IP. I think that's enough history about the game. How about we jump into what the story mode of this game actually is? So there's going to be 4 high schools that are represented. Well, actually 5. The 5th high school will actually belong to the antagonists of the story. But there's going to be 4 protagonist high schools that are represented here. Each high school has its own sort of gimmick to what it is. You have Gorin High School. Gorin High School's main focus is basically sports, and they want to have future Olympians. So when you look at the characters, you have people that play volleyball, you have people that play baseball, and you have people that play soccer. Their movesets are all very related to the sport that they play, which is really cool. You also have Taiyo High School, which seems like a pretty normal high school in my opinion. They have the most relaxed dress code. Nothing in particular really stands out about the high school. Obviously the main character is from that high school, but yeah, nothing too crazy about that one. Then you have Pacific High School. Pacific High School has a large focus on international/overseas students, so that's going to be like just a bunch of basically military kids, children's go there for school, so you're going to see a lot more just like foreigners since this is technically a Japanese game. And you have Gido High School. Gido High School is an all-boys high school, and it seems like it's very much so like a correctional high school, so basically this is where the worst of the worst kids in Japan go, or at least that's what the story says. But yeah, that's just going to be a whole bunch of like troublemaker kids, and I think when you look at the character sprites, you can really kind of tell they were going for that vibe. So as I said, there is an actual story mode to the game, but the interesting part is that if you don't pick 2 characters from the same high school, you actually don't get a story mode, and it's just like any other arcade fighter where you're just going through stages. The people get slightly harder and harder every stage, but if you do pick 2 kids from the same high school, you actually do get the story mode. Basically what's going on in the city is that there's a whole bunch of mystery kidnappings and a lot of violence going around, and basically every school has the same scenario going on, and so basically you're just trying to get to the bottom of it. What is also pretty interesting is that you're led to know that it's actually Justice High School that is behind all of it, and the Justice High high school teachers are also playable characters. When you play the lower end high school teachers from Justice High School, you actually find out that they're not even the ones behind all of this, or at least they're not aware that the high school is behind all of this, and they're surprised when they find out about it. As I said, the story of this game isn't all that complex. It's a pretty mediocre story, although I do like the cutscenes. The cutscenes are the style where it's basically just a still frame with text, and I don't know, something about that just really takes me back. Like, I know this game was obviously made in the late 90s, early 2000s, and so I can't really say it's like, oh, it really captured that feeling, because it's obviously from that time period, but something about it just has a soft spot in my mind, obviously. And there's just a ton of replayability in the story mode of this game. Basically, you can pick any combination of 3 characters from the same school and get a different story every time. So if there's 3 students from one school, you'll have 3 different stories depending on which ones you choose to be on your team. And another cool thing is that they had an emphasis on the team aspect of this game, since obviously this is the first game to introduce that kind of thing. Basically, if you beat the final boss in a very normal way, let's just say you kill him with a punch, you kill him with, I don't know, a kick, then you're gonna get one ending of the story. But to get the true ending of the story, if you kill the final boss with your special team move, you will then actually go on to the true boss of the game. So if you actually just kill him with a normal punch or kick, you're just basically gonna have no answers to the story, but you're able to get the real answers to the story when you actually do it with a team attack as your finishing move. Obviously, this just adds so much to the replayability, and although I said the story wasn't all that great, honestly, for fighting games back then, you almost never had a story. So this just really sets this game apart, and it really gives the characters more life, more relatability. Obviously, the story is not as relatable as maybe something in like Persona, even though some people might argue that story is not all that relatable. But the idea here is that it really just brings way more life to the characters, and you really just feel a little bit more towards them than you would a normal fighting game. I guess the big thing that I should be going into is the gameplay, because after all, that is the most important part of a fighting game, and I guess that is also what this whole video series is supposed to be about, like if the game is actually good. Obviously, as I said, the story is not the most compelling, it is pretty run-of-the-mill, but I feel like this game just holds so much historical value to fighting games that it is a very important game. I will be going into this as a pretty novice fighting game player. Like, I'm not going to say that I'm the best fighting game player in the world. I'm most definitely not. If you put me in a room of people that don't really play fighting games, I might be the best one in the room. But if you put me in a room with people who love the FGC community, I'm definitely getting my butt whooped. I think this game lends itself to be very fun for a casual, and I can see the potential for hardcore fans being really into it. I can see online there's a lot of people that want this game to be brought back, rebooted. I saw that someone behind the game back in I think it was like 2017, said he wanted to do a 3rd installment, because there is a 2nd installment that only came out on the Dreamcast in the US. Ultimate moves were very simple. There was no crazy inputs that you had to do to get it going. As far as like combos, there are no crazy combos as far as I could tell. I watched Justin Wong play this game. I watched him, like an old VOD of him playing it, and it didn't really seem like the combo game is too crazy. Like, I'll watch something like Dragon Ball FighterZ and I'll be like, man, these combos are insane. But I mean, obviously, Justin Wong, I'm sure he doesn't really play this game all that much, so he might not be the best rival school player in the world, but, you know, he has a lot of experience in Capcom games. So I don't think the gameplay of this game goes super deep. I could be completely wrong, and there could be some people pushing this game to its limits, but from what I saw, it seemed like pretty just normal combos. I don't think there was any super crazy, ridiculous stuff. Maybe I'll have to do a little more research before I finish this video, but it did seem like a casual fighter that you could take a little bit to a competitive level. But definitely, I think this would be fun for anyone that likes even fighting games just a little bit. And as I said, I'm not really the best fighting game player out there, but the training mode that this game had actually was very good at teaching me what the game was. It taught me about the game specific mechanics, like basically kind of a form of a parry if your attacks collide. Basically, it taught me a lot about how to use the sidestep. I don't know, I felt that the training mode in this game and how it taught you to use the stuff and how to understand the game was actually not all that bad. I'm still pretty bad at this game, most likely, but it was very nice that I could actually feel like the training helped me improve. The final thing to touch on would probably be the minigames. The minigames, they're nothing spectacular, but they are a good way to kill time, and I actually did enjoy playing them. Only gripe about it is that it can be kind of a big headache to unlock them, but when you do, it is actually pretty decent, and is a cool inclusion in the game. I feel like, honestly, back in the day, you got a really good bang for your buck if you bought this. In conclusion, I honestly do think you should look into picking up Rival Schools, or at the very least, just try and play it a little bit. I think it's a super cool fighting game, definitely ahead of its time, and come on, PS1 games are definitely a classic, especially whenever they come from Capcom. From what I'm currently seeing on eBay, you can get this game for around $150. Now, I know that price is steep, but guys, trust me, this is definitely worth it. I'm not someone that loves shelling out hundreds of dollars on video games, but this game, just something about it is super fun, and I think all people, even if you don't love fighting games, I think you will have a good sense amount of fun with this, and especially if you have friends to play it with. In my personal opinion, Rival Schools is definitely valid for the $150 price point, and if you ever see it for anything less than that, I highly recommend it, but even at $150, I think it's well worth it. Thank you for watching, guys. You should let me know what other video games you'd love for me to review next. I don't have any on my list of ones that I want to do next, so definitely whatever you guys say in the comment section, I definitely will keep in mind. Please pick something that's a little more obscure, a little higher dollar in value, just so it's not like something like that's a $10 game that anyone could pick up and it really wouldn't be a bother to them if like their $10 went to waste on a bad game. I want to be reviewing stuff that is kind of on the pricier end, just so that I can help people decide if they should shell out the cash for it. But thanks again for watching, guys.